Dear friend, there are moments in life when we suddenly pause in the middle of an ordinary day and ask ourselves, what am I truly living for? Perhaps that question appears on a Monday morning when you wake up feeling exhausted. Perhaps it comes when you look at the calendar and realize another year is quietly passing by. Or perhaps it appears when you suddenly notice that you have spent so much of your life caring for others, fulfilling responsibilities, and meeting expectations, yet rarely taking the time to ask what your own heart truly needs. More than 180 years ago, there was a man searching for answers to those very same questions. In 1845, at the age of 27, Henry David Thoreau borrowed an axe, walked to the shores of Walden Pond, and began a remarkable experiment. He built a small cabin with his own hands. He carefully calculated every nail, every wooden board, every dollar he spent. Then he lived there for more than 2 years, not to escape the world, and not to prove anything to anyone. He simply wanted to answer one very simple question. How much does a person truly need in order to live a free life? And what he discovered remains just as meaningful today as it was then, especially in an age where so many people are so busy that they no longer have time to truly live. Lesson 1. Everything has a cost measured in life. Thoreau once wrote, "The cost of a thing is the amount of life which is required to be exchanged for it." The first time I read that sentence, I sat quietly for a long time, because most of us believe the cost of something is the number written on the price tag, but Thoreau saw beyond that. He did not ask, "How much money does it cost?" He asked, "How much of your life did you have to exchange for it? How many hours of work, how much energy, how much stress, how many precious moments that you will never get back?" When you begin looking at life through that lens, everything starts to change, because sometimes what exhausts us is not our work, it is everything we are trying to maintain: a house beyond our means, a lifestyle beyond our needs, an image that is far removed from who we truly are. Everything we own requires care, requires time, requires energy, requires attention, and sometimes the real price is not the money we spend, it is the piece of our life that quietly disappears in the process. Many people become trapped in a cycle: work more to buy more to feel more successful, then work even harder to maintain everything they have accumulated, day after day, year after year, yet deep inside, the feeling of fulfillment never quite arrives. Thoreau realized that freedom does not come from having more, freedom comes from needing less, because when you need very little to be happy, no one can easily control your life. Lesson 2. Live deliberately. Perhaps this is Thoreau's most famous lesson. He wrote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately." It sounds simple, but when you reflect deeply on those words, they become a powerful reminder, because most of us are not truly living deliberately. We live according to habits, according to pressure, according to expectations, according to what the people around us believe is right. Our days are often very busy, yet sometimes they lack awareness, they lack presence, they lack connection with ourselves, and one day, we realize that we have traveled very far, yet we do not know where we are going. Thoreau did not go into the woods to avoid life, he went there to remove what was unnecessary, to see what truly mattered, to discover the very essence of living. This does not mean you must give everything up. It does not mean you must adopt an extreme minimalist lifestyle. It simply means being honest enough to ask yourself, what truly matters to me? Is it peace, time with family, good health, freedom, meaningful experiences, or a life where each night, before you sleep, you feel that you have lived in alignment with your heart? Only when you answer that question can you know what is worth keeping, and what is ready to be released. Because living deliberately is not about living like everyone else, it is about living in a way that is true to yourself. Lesson 3. True wealth is freedom. We are often taught that wealth means having more money, more possessions, more achievements, more status, but Thoreau viewed wealth from an entirely different perspective. He said, A man is rich in proportion to the number of things which he can afford to let alone. At first, this sounds almost contradictory, yet the older I become, the more truth I find in those words, because real wealth is not the ability to buy everything. Real wealth is not being dependent on everything. You may own many things, but if you constantly fear losing them, you are not free. You may earn a great deal of money, but if your work drains your spirit, you are not free. You may possess everything society admires, but if you wake up each morning feeling burdened and disconnected, you are not truly wealthy. For Thoreau, the greatest form of wealth was time. Time to live, time to love, time to be present, time to become who you truly are. And when you know what is enough, life suddenly becomes much lighter. You no longer feel compelled to chase everything. You no longer need to prove yourself. You no longer live to impress others. You begin living for yourself. Dear friend, the most beautiful part of Thoreau's story is that he did not remain in the woods forever, because his purpose was never to escape life. His purpose was to prove that another way of living is possible, a way of living that is more conscious, more intentional, more free. And once you see that possibility, you can never look at life in quite the same way again. Perhaps today, you do not need to move into a small cabin by a lake. You do not need to give up everything. You simply need to begin with a few honest questions. Is this truly worth exchanging a part of my life for? Does this make me more free or more dependent? Does this bring me closer to the person I want to become? And perhaps, through those small questions, you will gradually discover a life that fits you more deeply, a life not designed by other people's expectations, but created from the values that genuinely belong to you, because ultimately, the freedom we seek is not waiting somewhere in the distant future. It begins with awareness, with self-understanding, and with the choices we make every single day, right here, right now. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and always remember that this world needs you, and only you can create the values. Don't forget to give me a like, subscribe, turn on notifications to watch the latest videos every week. Once again, thank you and see you in the next videos.